So as we start the 11th stage from Marastica to the Zoldo Alto, this is where we join the wildlife here in the natural parks of this beautiful country of Italy. The roads won't be quite as narrow as this, I can assure you, but the hills themselves will start at around 93 kilometres today with the Sereda Pass, and it keep on going right through towards the finishing line. This is when the tour, I suspect, really begins for the main contenders, Paul, because the mountains are with us for a few days now.
Yeah, this is a very difficult part. The riders have got 2 or 3 days in the mountains, and these are difficult climbs that the riders will be facing up to. These are the Dolomites right up in the top right-hand corner of Italy, and it makes a magnificent backdrop for the race. And this is where the stories and the race really does begin to unfold. Moving away from Marostica, it's quite an easy start, but it really is in the middle part of the course that it starts to get that little bit more difficult. The riders go through the valley roads as they head up towards the high spots. They've got around about 80 kilometres of undulating roads to get the legs warmed up before they all of a sudden start to go up to the high spots. There's the first climb of the day, followed very difficult by a 3.5 kilometre climb, but it's these passes, the Passo Duran, which goes up for 13 kilometres, where I expect a lot of the changes to take place.
And that will take them on to the finishing climb here. Well, there has been a breakaway, doing very well all day, including Benoit Joachim of Team Discovery Channel, and also Jose Rujano, who has done enough to take the race lead in the King of the Mountains off Coldo Gil for the first time. Kraus will keep us into Giro, but now is coming the battle towards the end, and there's been a total reshaping here at the front, and not surprisingly, we're not surprised anymore, Basso is in the seat.
Yeah, but look at that, the Maglia Rosa, Danilo De Luca looking very comfortable, responded to all the moves in this group as well as Paolo Salvadelli. He's there in third place, rather a strange position, sitting right on the front end of his saddle. In there as well, Gilberto Simoni and Damiano Cunego. Just looking down there, I think that's also Regano who's managed to stay in there. And this is a rider that this Cellitalia squad, Phil, are tipping as a star of the future.
Well, Basso right now is giving us every indication he's out to get the lead in the race today. But Basso, you've got to take your hat off to him because he is such a tough little competitor. Just sliding off the back there is Ardila. He's the Colombian rider who won 2 stages and the overall in the Tour of Britain last year. This year he's got promotion to ride in the big one, the Giro d'Italia.
Gilberto Simoni just over there on the right-hand side, looking calm as a cucumber. And again, Ivan Basso, he wants this afternoon. He wants to get himself into that Maglia Rosa if he can. He must attack all of the way to try and get himself rid of Danilo De Luca, who is his limpet mine this afternoon.
Interesting that Cunego was up here, but he's dropped back and he's at 50 seconds now. Now, this is an interesting move because Simoni is up amongst it. But, you know, this is a good counter move. But just how many times can Basso launch an attack like this without hurting himself?
But he looks so good this afternoon. His time trial the other day was absolutely superb. He did exactly what he needed to do. This is the composition of the group, and it was Criano was in there, number 43. Yeah. You see him. He rides for Columbia Cellitalia. Although looking down here, Phil, I think he's just about to pop.
Well, he's got to. He's the only man who's survived from the breakaway. He's done enough to give himself the lead in the King of the Mountains, but he is the only one left from the original breakaway today. These boys have come up from the main pack and riding extremely well right now, but I take my hat off to the pink jersey. He's riding superbly. He knows he's under pressure. Paolo Sabadelli is here as well, also riding well. Look at this, the determination on De Luca. You know, De Luca might do enough to keep his lead here. He's got to control Basso, of course. That's his main adversary today.
This is Atienza on the back, the rider from Cofidis, looking over his shoulder to see. But the damage is certainly being done here by Ivan Basso, not taking any prisoners at all. Well, I think we now know who is going to be the leader of Team Lampre, because Cunego today, Phil, is certainly under difficulty. And I think that'll be a sigh of relief we'll hear this afternoon from Gilberto Simoni.
Well, after his remarkable year last year, including a win in the Tour of Lombardy, you can't repeat seasons like that, I think, when you're very young, as Damiano is. So maybe it's time to hand the reins back to the veteran, Simoni.
Paolo Salvadelli doesn't look very comfortable either. He's just struggling to try and stay in contact. And that looks like Riano is coming back. Now, he is an amazing rider. He was in the breakaway early on, and he's pulling himself back up here, Phil, to the heads of state of the Giro.
Well, good for him. He knows he's got the lead in the King of the Mountains, and that's a big prize at the minute. This is a little bit further down the line here. And I must say that they're in trouble now, because this group has been driven away by Basso, and if they don't put matters to rights, they're going to be in more than a spot of bother right now.
I think that was Wim van Huffel there, a new rider that I don't actually know very much about, a rider who rides for Lotto de Vitamont. As we move a little bit further up the road, it's still Ivan Basso, and they're now down to just 4 riders. And Paolo Salvadelli, although he seems to be in a spot of bother, has still not been completely dislodged from this leading group.
Well, he put in a good time trial, as did Basso, of course. They've got the first big hurdle behind them. They're more specialist in the mountains, so this is where they've got to now consolidate and show their skills. This is a very select little group, and if I'd have been a betting man, I wouldn't have bet that De Luca would have been with them, and yet there he is, the pink jersey rising to the occasion.
Rising to the occasion. I think this year he's risen back up to the top. Look at that. Coming back, there is Ruyano. Now, remember that name? I think from memory, Ruyano is only just 22 years of age. We expected to see him ride in the Tour de Langkawi last year, but unfortunately he had a nasty crash just before the start and wasn't able to participate, but he was pretty impressive this season. It's Van Huffel just behind. This is Patrice Algon. Ruyano, look at him at the back here again, and he's struggling. He's got a very strange style. He's all over the machine. He's trying to keep himself in contact with the heads of state, and I think Paolo Salvadelli's gone.
It looks as though he's lost the gap there. He's cracked a little bit now. This is a lovely part of the area here as we climb through this natural park. And the group's now catching up the remnants of that breakaway as they continue. This is Cunego's group. He's the next group on the road, but he's lost ground. 75 seconds now, so he's lost a little bit more. And that's a lot to lose just now because the race could be going away from him.
And that's got O'Gill in there with the green jersey as leader of the King of the Mountains. That was the lead that he had this morning. I think De Luca's going here. This is not a surprise.
Well, who is doing the driving? Well, just still Basso. Nobody's helping him. Least of all Simoni.
Not even Gilberto Simoni. Simoni just sitting there.
Hello, welcome back. Is he coming back? Is he going back?
He's just trying to survive. He's got to find a decent rhythm now. I don't think he's able to stay on the terrible pressure that's being laid out to him by Ivan Basso. Basso not asking for any help at all, and there's the gap.
Well, he knows he's climbing up towards the line. He's got to hang on in there as long as he can. There's a young face there of Damiano Cunego, winner of the Giro last year, under pressure this time around, and he was showing signs of coming good, I thought. Well, De Luca may have been unhooked, but he isn't completely out of this. He's just trying to ride at his own rhythm.
Trying to ride at his own rhythm. Wants to try and survive.
Setting the pace.
Doing a job there for Damiano Cunego. But look at this. This is a man possessed. He wants to win the Giro d'Italia. This man, we've watched him over the last few years progress at the Tour de France, crashing out in his first participation, then finishing 11th, then finishing 7th. Look at that time gap back to Cunego.
Enormously now.
2 minutes. Gilberto Simoni does not look comfortable here.
That looked like 20 kilometres to go there on the side of the road. It might have been 30. As we're looking here at Basso, looking so compact and relaxed here. Even the great climber Simoni looks a little bit under pressure right now. This is a little bit further back because this is Jose Rujano. He's been joined by Paolo Salvadelli. That could be good news. In fact, 3 kilometres, sorry, as we're now seeing the finish here. We've moved further up the road. And Simoni hasn't done any help whatsoever. Rujano, we've seen race before him in Asia, is a fabulous little climber with a body weight of about 44 kilos, that man. He's doing pretty well.
Well, these two riders are pulling themselves back up to the Maglia Rosa. Just caught a glimpse there of Danilo De Luca. What De Luca must do now is just forget about trying to stay in contact with these two men who are climbing much better than he is this afternoon, but getting himself into a rhythm so he doesn't lose too much time. And I think that's exactly here what Paolo Salvadelli has done, because he's brought himself back to the Maglia Rosa. De Luca not looking as stressed as he was a few moments ago. I think he's decided to raise the white flag and just try and see if he can find a comfortable rhythm.
Well, can he hang on to Paolo? Paolo's back, found his legs. He's dropped off. He's got back into his green zone where he can dictate the pace. And it's quite likely he can recover here and get back up with them. This is Basso. This is a serious move by Basso. This is a planned move. He'll be a little upset that he's not getting any assistance from Simoni, but I don't suppose he will expect any.
I don't suppose either that the man who wears number 2 this year can give any help at all for the moment. He's just quite happy to stay in second position. And in fact, he's starting to open up the gap. You know, Gilberto Simoni this afternoon is also now being put under pressure. Paolo Salvadelli riding a sensible pace, and Danilo De Luca just hoping he can stay on the wheel of little Rujano, who's just in front of him.
They've all come down to their own level here now, and sometimes on a long climb you can lift it a little bit, but little and slowly. You because otherwise he'll be back in the red zone. Well, Basso's done it all today. This has been his day, man of the match, as they say. He's done all of the attacking. He's delivered attack after attack until he finally broke the spirit of everyone except Simoni. And Simoni will have the ability to fly in the last kilometre.
De Luca's gone. Again, Danilo De Luca under pressure. The crowd trying to egg him on. The Tifosi here in Italy trying to encourage the man who was worn the Maglia Rosa for the last couple of days, defended it in the individual time trial. But it's in fact the little Venezuelan Rujano now who's lifting up the pace.
Well, good for him because he's hurt them all and he knows he's got a green jersey waiting for him at the finish. Rujano riding extremely well at the moment. Basso looks pretty calm and collected. He's just relaxed on the bike. I think he's
comfortable now with the team. He's happy with his relationship with Bjarne Riis, and every time I see him race, I remember what Giancarlo Ferretti said. Why should I have a rider like Ivan Basso? He doesn't win races and he never attacks. Well, I think Giancarlo must be thinking differently today.
Well, Savadelli is all of a sudden having to sit behind the Venezuelan rider there, who was behind them all, remember. He was in the original breakaway and he's found his legs to get back through the pack. And they're opening up very slowly a gap on the Danilo De Luca, but not by a big margin, and they're running out of time.
Well, De Luca mustn't panic. He
A
just
little
needs to
signal
stay
there,
there.
Paul. A little signal from Basso. I don't know whether he was just saying, come and give me a hand or what.
I think he wanted him to come forward, set a little bit of the pacemaking. 2 kilometres to the summit. Magnificent backdrop here. These are such savage climbs. They're beautiful climbs because of the nature of this part of the world. The time gap, Phil, is not great. It's only 15 seconds back to Rujano and number 71 there, Paolo Salvadelli.
Is pulling them back.
He is.
I don't know where he's found the legs. There it is, 20 seconds to De Luca. They could all come together here.
It's only a further 5 seconds back to Danilo De Luca. He's not panicking at the moment. He's trying to stay calm. Yet you see, Basso, that's another indication of that hand. He wants now Gilberto Simoni to come forward. I don't think Simoni can, but Basso is trying to force him forward.
Well, the graffiti artists have been out today. I'm sure the winter snows will take care of that, though. As we're now looking down at a fantastic day by Ivan Basso. Terrific pacemaking, but when the cameras pan back, there's the chase now. And it is the Venezuelan, Jose Rujano, who is actually pulling Paolo Savadelli back up to the leaders. And that's a big return because Rujano won't be seen as a winner of the Giro. But you know, Paolo Savadelli's done it before, so must be considered.
And here's Danilo De Luca. He's only about 3 or 4 seconds, and he seems now, look at the rhythm, Phil, he seems to have got himself back in. The funny thing is about a non-pure climber is certain gradients are better suited to you. Now, this man was put into difficulty, and I think as we get to the slightly easier incline, he's getting himself into a rhythm that's pulling himself back into this race.
Well, as the summit approaches, we're heading up towards the mountain, and then we've got a short descent, and then the action of the finishing climb. And there's a massive crowd out here, and the clock is counting, I think, over the top, and this is where De Luca will get back. He will rejoin here easily, no problems, and we all know how well Il Falco descends. So are they going to close the gap and will take 5 men to the last climb?
De Luca's back. Look at that. This is what the Maglia Rosa, the leader's jersey, when you pull it onto your shoulders, you get a little bit of extra strength and a whole lot more courage. Danilo De Luca has pulled himself back to Paolo Salvadelli and Jose Rujano, and you know, I make it around about 12 seconds between them and this leading group on the road.
I'm just looking there, that's 1 kilometre to go here now. So that was not the actual summit, Paul. We've still got that false flat, then this thing, then we go back up again. So that wasn't the top of the climb.
That certainly wasn't the top
so
of the climb.
So they'll take advantage to close the gap, though, because they've got this little undulation here.
What gap?
Oh, well,
They're
there we
here.
are, then. All message over.
5 men
here
back
come
in
the
front.
troops, and look at this. Rujano, who wants those King of the Mountains points, has gone straight back to the front. It's almost as if he knew there was that little respite before the actual run up to the top.
Well, this man, he might be small in stature. He actually weighs 48 kilos. But I tell you what, he's not worried about the reputations of the men with him. He's gone straight to the front. He's inside the final kilometre to the summit of this climb, and he wants maximum points if he can. And Danilo De Luca, Phil, how good is he going to feel that he's got 3 minutes advantage over Cunego?
Well, this has hurt Cunego, and it looks like it's curtains for him too if he continues to lose at this rate, because we've still got the finishing climb to come. And this is going to put the boys in big trouble here. because this is the first big move of this year's Giro, and Danilo De Luca in the pink is right there tagged on. I can't see him hanging on up the final climb, but you never know, he could be inspired.
Could be very much inspired, but Jose Rujano is looking at the top here of the Paso Duran at 131 kilometers of today's stage covered. It's a first category climb, and who would have thought that the little man from Venezuela is dictating to the pace to the heads of state: Ivan Basso, Gilberto Simone, Danilo De Luca and Paolo Salvadelli.
Now if we get to the next climb as a group of 5, it'll be as if somebody threw a firework in the middle of them, because they'll race for the summit one-on-one, I think, as they continue up towards the end. There's the long line now. Now will they bother to attack the Venezuelan, who's built up a winning lead, not a winning lead, but a lead in the King of the Mountains just now?
Suffering.
Come on, Danilo, don't let it go now, because you can see the finish, and look at him try as he tries to hook up a game with Salvadelli.
He's turning himself inside out at this moment. He's done an incredible job this afternoon. Not a lot of people gave him a chance of keeping the Maglia Rosa here this afternoon on the first big mountain stage. But what he's doing is currently doing that. There are points for Rujano. Basso goes across there in second place. Third place Simone, Paolo Salvadelli, and just tucked on the back Danilo De Luca. I wonder now if Paolo Salvadelli is going to use his descending ability to try and falsify his company with that leading group of 5.
Well, this is Pietro Cocchioli further back here, and he is the rider signed this year by Crédit Agricole for this very race, and he's trying to put matters to right because he's allowed a little group to go away, but he's certainly best of the rest right now, and hasn't lost as much as poor Damiano Cunego as he climbs up the climb here with Atienza.
Daniel Atienza, Spanish rider on the Cofidis squad, a man who in the past has always ridden rather well at the Giro d'Italia. They're just inside around about 100 metres to the summit, but they've lost themselves almost a minute on that group of 5 riders, but there's going to be a massive change in the top 10 of the overall classification this evening.
Well, there's the summit of the climb. Remember, 5 have gone over the top. Atienza, Cocchioli over there behind, just on 1 minute the gap. It's going to be a long wait there for Damiano Cunego, and there's still the last climb to come. This is a big push now for some of the favourites, and there are 3 of them here, in fairness. I wouldn't count De Luca as being a race favourite overall, but this man going down could be rated one of the best descenders in the world, and look at him chop the apex off these corners. Il
Falco is his nickname, the Falcon, because of the way he plummets out of the skies from the summit of these climbs down to the valleys below. He has absolutely and utterly no fear, and he can certainly go down hills very fast indeed. In fact, the man in the team car behind him, Sean Yates for Team Discovery Channel, also used to go down hills rather fast, but Il Falco there, Phil, is putting a lot of pressures on that riders, or those riders with him.
The way he's looking over his shoulder, that is an attack. He's really stretching the riders there to make a mistake, and I don't think Rujano will manage to go down at those sort of speeds. Well, I think we're probably back with the Cunego group here, and it's at 2 minutes at the moment. Coldo Gil is here. He's out of that green jersey now. There's Cunego off to the far right in the blue. He's still further down though. Meanwhile, 2:07 ticks by.
Kessler just going through there, 2:10, but it is still going to be around about the 3-minute mark before we see Damiano Cunego.
The future winner of the Giro is in that front group of 5 right now.
Absolutely, and it could very well be Ivan Basso, the way he's ridden with such a dominating style since the start of this race. It's a pity, though, that little Rujano lost so much time in the early few days of the race, because they would start to look at him as a serious threat. Now look at the gap here. This is De Luca, this is Basso. They're not quite as good as going around these corners as Paolo Salvadelli. I just caught a glimpse of Salvadelli. He's not that far off the front, maybe 5 or 6 seconds, but he's not taking any prisoners.
Well, if he gets to the bottom of the climb alone, he can climb as well as descend. That could really be a great coup for the Team Discovery. They've lost Tom Danielson, who we were expecting to really excel in this year's Giro d'Italia. Hasn't been. There's number 1. Quite content to ride with Tonti, number 5, his teammate, who's ridden pretty well here. He's obviously been designated to look after last year's champion.
It's Charlie Wagélis at the back, number 159.
Well done, Charlie.
Wagélis has always ridden well at the Giro d'Italia. Look at the time, though, 3 minutes and 17 seconds. So that's big time chunks going away for Damiano Cunego.
Well, we know who the leader of the Lampre team is now. Simone, the winner of this race 2 years ago, is now the protected rider for sure.
Absolutely. As we go down, we rejoin here. This is Gilberto Simone himself. Phil, not a bad descender, but I think he's been put under pressure. I can't believe that Paolo Salvadelli is not off up the road, because Salvadelli is the best descender. There's Salvadelli just going around that corner, but these two men both go downhill pretty fast. Simoni, as a climber, is probably one of the best descenders of his group of men, but this man is the best descender in the world currently on the circuit.
Mad, crazy, kamikaze, call him what you like. This man can take time out of the best riders in the world going downhill, and he has the climbing ability to finish it off, and that's his plan, is to not attack them on the way up, because people like Simoni and Basso can climb as well, is to beat them on the descent and then use his climbing power to stay clear on the way up to the line.
Well, I don't think he'd regard himself as being mad or crazy. I think he's just having a little bit of fun here this afternoon, because he knows that he has the ability to go downhill fast. He looked over his shoulder there. It's a very special gift, being able to go downhill fast, and a lot of it is to do with your nerve, but a certain proportion is to do with your position on the machine, making sure that your center of gravity is in an ideal position. He's looked over a couple of times there to see just exactly where Gilberto Simoni is. You can see Paolo Salvadelli is not one of the greatest climbers in the world, but he's used this downhill ability over the last number of seasons to keep himself in contact with the big men in the big mountain passes.
Well, he's not afraid to crash. He's had his first share of crashes over the years and broken bones, and in fact he hasn't won a race since he won the Giro d'Italia, which is way back in 2002. And to cross the line in a race, he hasn't done that since he won a mountain time trial just after he won the Giro d'Italia. Didn't win any stages in the Giro when he won this tour in 2002. So this could be a big return, and a big way of saying thank you to Johan Brunel, perhaps,
for having confidence in him. He tried to bring Paolo Salvadelli into the squad a couple of seasons ago, but he wasn't able to get him away from Alexia Alumina, which was probably a major mistake, although he did win the Giro d'Italia for that team. Here you can see that Ruano has disappeared from this group. This is Basso, Simoni and Danilo De Luca still keeping himself in there, and they've got around about a 15-second deficit on the man who leads the event.
Well, he's made his move. He's got his gap. The boys are reforming at the back now to decide quite what they're going to do. Very shortly we'll start our climb up towards the line. This is an intriguing way to win a stage of the Giro d'Italia, I must say, and he's very confident to have gone. But for a man who can descend well, this is a perfect descent. The roads are narrow, the surface is good, and it's plenty of twists and turns. You're out of sight very quickly. De Luca there hanging on to two flyers in Basso and Simoni. But we have, as I thought, Paul, we have lost Origiano, who couldn't go down with these boys.
Well, he's got a definite handicap of not being quite as heavy as the other riders in the group with him. He weighs less than 50 kilos, and that's a serious disadvantage when you're going downhill at around about 60 miles an hour. Danilo De Luca there in the Maglia Rosa has recovered. He's stuck onto the back wheel of Gilberto Simoni, and Ivan Basso seems to have recovered, although he's improved his time trialing ability, he seems to have lost a little bit of his downhill skills.
Well, just one car keeping an eye on affairs now. Neutral service, I would think, looking after the majority, although it looks like it's CSC team car. Back with the leader now. Must be a very lonely man down here. I would think he's got no service. If he does have a flat tyre, he'll wait for the group. So he continues to descend. 10 kilometres to go to the finishing line. 6 miles. But the vast majority is uphill. He'll shortly be changing direction and starting the climb.
Well, this is a big risk for Paolo Salvadelli, because he's moving
it's a brave one.
All of the effort on the downhill part of the course. He hasn't really opened up a huge gap. He's been chased by Simoni, De Luca and Basso, and I would say Simoni and Basso could recover on the last few kilometres uphill and pull Salvadelli back into the fold. I'm just looking over on the left-hand side to see if I could catch a glimpse of Rihanna, but he seems to have disappeared, while this man, if you can use 99.8% of the road, he's using that right now.
Well, I'll tell you what.
Watch this.
It's a bit tight. Trying to get the tightest line, he realised they hadn't made that barrier quite round, and he had to flick a little bit, but he's done it safely. And here's Danilo De Luca, not sure whether he's in the front, no, he's behind. So he's also, remember he broke his collarbone in the Tour de France descending on a descent like this, Paul.
Yes, he did. It's so very difficult when you're going downhill on a tyre that measures in at less than 1 inch. It's 9 kilometres to go to the finish now as we whip down into town. Salvadelli, watch the way he goes over to the right-hand side, cuts the apex of the corner very narrowly. The reason he does that is to make sure he doesn't lose too much impetus, to keep the pace as high as possible. But now, unfortunately, it's no longer downhill. We're starting to kick up towards the finishing line, and this is a climb of almost 9 kilometres.
A maximum 11%, an average of nearly 7%. This is no easy climb. There's the change of direction now. The others are probably about 10 or 12 seconds back, maybe slightly more, judging by the corner.
Yep, they've got to get themselves organised, but we did see on the previous climb that Ivan Basso was in excellent form. Simoni may well have recovered. After all, Simoni has won a lot of mountain top finishes in his career. Salvadelli is holding on to a mere 19 seconds advantage, and once you've gone downhill for a long time and the road suddenly kicks up, it doesn't half hurt the legs.
And you can imagine how the legs are feeling right now. He's got to concentrate on this now and get himself into a rhythm. He's laid his cards on the table today. He's a past winner of the Giro, and this is a serious bid to try and take the Maglia Rosa. He's shown us a great time trial. Johan Brunel will be encouraging him, or rather Sean Yates will be encouraging. Johan's not here. Sean Yates is the manager of the race today.
Paolo Salvadelli, 8 kilometres to go to the finish, and he's still got a slight advantage of around about 12 seconds over the group of three. Here is Ivan Basso ripping it up here, looking over his shoulder, Phil, to see what kind of damage he's doing there to Gilberto Simoni and Danilo De Luca. He must be wondering what day it is.
Well, De Luca's got that elastic in stretching it, and it's pretty pliable right now because he hasn't gone yet. But I tell you, I think Basso must be kicking himself now because he really has been the man of the race, and this is the final pressure point by Basso. He has opened the gap on De Luca as we move a little bit further down here, because this is Sella here and he's coming up lower down the slopes. But I was just saying, Basso has done everything right, allowed this man to beat him on the descent, and there's still a chance he's not going to win the day.
Well, Danilo De Luca here, he's just got to get himself once again into a rhythm that is reasonably comfortable for him to make sure he doesn't look too much time. And Ivan Basso, Phil, is putting the gap now between himself there and you can just see Gilberto Simoni. But around the corner, Paolo Salvadelli keeps looking back. He's made a good operation here, Salvadelli. I think initially he thought he was going to win the stage, but now all he's got to do is just hope he can hold on when this train of CSC goes by Ivan Basso.
Well, this is a big push, the final big push of the day here by Basso. He's used an awful lot of energy up today, attack and counter-attack. Outwitted by Salvadelli on the way down, but might well repair the damage on the way up to the line. Remember, we're climbing up to the finish now. Salvadelli knows that they're coming at him. He had about 20 seconds at the start of the climb, and Basso has sliced that.
Well, actually, Basso hasn't quite got rid of Gilberto Simoni yet. There is a large gap, but it's not a gap that is a definite gap between the two riders. Simoni is an experienced professional bike rider. You don't win the Giro d'Italia 2 times without being tough when it comes to mountaintop finishes. But Paolo Salvadelli's also won their race previously, and he will be hoping now that he can just get onto the slipstream. I'm surprised to see Gilberto Simoni under a spot of bother, because let's not forget, a couple of days ago, Ivan Basso really had to turn himself inside out, Phil, to do a very good individual time trial.
Well, that was a definite attack by Basso. He's got rid of De Luca. He momentarily got rid of Simoni, but he hasn't all of a sudden caught up. The gap closed dramatically. It's opened again. Salvadelli's gone away again.
Oh,
there he is up the road.
He's only just around the corner.
9 seconds. 9 seconds, and Simoni is recovered.
Simoni may well just grapple back. Now, this is the man on the left-hand side, Paolo Salvadelli. He was thinking about just moving himself up in the overall classification here this afternoon, but Ivan Basso is thinking about getting himself the Maglia Rosa at the end of today's stage. This is a man who many people are tipping as a future winner of the Tour de France, and if he was to ride in the Tour as dominantly as he's ridden today's stage, I would say he's got a very good chance of doing that. But first of all, he has to catch back to Paolo Salvadelli.
Well, Basso has given a lot of effort on the roads today of the mountains of the Giro, and will they cost him dearly, or will he profit by them? Because he's still got the 2 most dangerous climbers, I think, in this year's race, one in front and one just behind. But he is coming back to Paolo Salvadelli, and Paolo, his heart's going to hit his boots now, because look at the face too of Simoni. He is such a pure climber, this man. Looks good. He's a very small man. He always looks quite large on television, but when you meet him, you look down on him. But he's a great climber.
And he's tough, and he's brave and courageous, and he does not want to lose the back wheel there of Ivan Basso, and it looks as if it's all coming back together. We've just gone inside of 7 kilometres to go to the finish, and I think we're going to have, once again, a 3-man leading group.
Salvadelli, Basso, Simoni, Two of them have won the Giro before, and it's the other one, Basso, who's been the man of the day, and here he comes.
He just looks cool, doesn't he? Calm and collected. He's looking at the man in front of him, and in fact he doesn't have to look very far because he's onto the wheel now of Paolo Salvadelli, and a little bit further back, look at Simoni here. He's all over that machine. He really is hurting, but he cannot give up. He needs to keep himself in contact if he wants to try and win the Giro for a third time.
Well, that's hurt Basso, that chase, because I thought he would have attacked Salvadelli immediately, and he can't do that. He's just taken his slipstream. And funnily enough, Salvadelli hasn't reduced his pace. He's just getting on with it as if Basso hadn't even arrived there. Now he's looking at him to see what's going on. You can see there that Cunego and Stefano Garzelli out to over 4 minutes, so their race for the Maglia Rosa rather is done.
That's a long way back.
And this is going to be 3 riders at the top because the pace has steadied and they've insisted on Basso pacemaking, so Simoni will get back. Here we go down the road, 4 minutes. Coldo Gil, his tour is also done for the King of the Mountains, I think. Looking as though he's puffing and blowing. There's Cunego and Garzelli. They're the big losers on the stage today, that's for sure.
Now's the push. I think, you know, Paolo Salvadelli was quite clever there. For around about a kilometre or so, he sat up and rode at a slightly easier pace so he could recuperate a fraction. But now Ivan Basso seems to have recovered. He's gone to the front. And although he's the one dictating the pace, Gilberto Simoni has now come back. 3 riders leading the event, and I can't see, looking back down the road, any sight at all of the Maglia Rosa, but here he is.
He's a bit further down the road though, because there's nobody ahead of him, and I think this is going to mean, if it continues like this, that in fact after a great show of defiance, De Luca is going to lose the race lead. It's a question of where it will go. It should in theory go to Basso.
It should go to Ivan Basso at the end of today. He's the man who was in second place overall at the start of the day. Paolo Salvadelli will move up a long way in the overall classification, quite possibly into third place, because I can't see Damiano Cunego losing, I should say Danilo De Luca losing all that much time at the end of the day. He's got himself into a reasonable rhythm. What he must not do is panic and push himself too far into the red zone.
Well, these boards are counting down the kilometres to the finish, but they don't always tell us which kilometre to the finish. We're really in the beautiful part of Italy right now. The clock's counting on that board as well, so this will be to Danilo De Luca when he gets there. 6 kilometres to go now. Just 6 kilometres, but this is a tough climb. This is averaging 11%. Here comes De Luca under that board, nearly half a minute down. And he doesn't want to lose much more. He's going to be out anyway of the pink jersey right now in favour of Ivan Basso.
But what's important is for him to stay in the top 3 in the overall classification if he can. With a good ride, a defensive ride here, he could still maybe only drop down into second place. But if there's a lot of pressure in the final few kilometres, then Paolo Salvadelli will certainly see himself leap right up in the standings.
Well, we're into the mountains. We have a fairly easy day tomorrow. Should be a day of the sprinters after the battle today of the mountains, and then we're back in the high mountains for a couple of days. And we've still got in the last 4 days some mountain top finishes as well. So it's a tough sting in the tail, the Giro this year, as it always is, especially when you start in the far south of the country where there's undulations but no mountains. Paolo Salvadelli here, first time on Team Discovery. No Lance Armstrong to worry about because he is the leader of the team. And Salvadelli now been forced to follow. He must be a little bit disappointed. He took a great gamble there. It hasn't worked out. But Basso has had to use a lot of energy to reach him.
He used a lot of energy, a lot of nervous energy on the descent as well, but he's not getting any help. You see every now and again he just flicks his wrist. I think he's looking for some help to come. Come on guys, we've got a good situation here. We can get rid of Danilo De Luca, still only 25 seconds. And although De Luca has been slipped off the back of that group, he doesn't look to me, Phil, as if he's a man who's panicking. He's in his own rhythm, he's in his own little world here on the final few kilometres of this climb, and he's actually not losing all that much time.
No, he's doing pretty well, I think, and he hasn't lost sight of that. He's a wise man. He knows you can't ride at other people's paces on mountains. You've got to ride at your own. 5 kilometres to go. Always a chance to recover as well. And Basso has established himself as the #1 favourite now. Gilberto Simoni has established himself as the #1 favourite for Lampre. And back in the frame, Paolo Salvadelli, because I really didn't think he was going to be a big challenger this year.
This man going through the same point, 5 kilometers to go, and in fact he's grappled back a single second there, so he's not panicking at all. He's keeping himself in a status quo with these three riders, but Basso is a man completely on his own. Look at that, there's a car has just gone, in fact that's a raffle of wind that's gone through there, and it's actually blown a lot of dust up into the face of the man Danilo De Luca. This is much further down. That's Cunego on the far side there. He's certainly not going to win the Giro d'Italia Phil here this afternoon. The man helping him, as always when he's in difficulty, Andrea Tonti. And in that group as well, Charlie Wiggalis, the British rider, is there alongside Stefano Garzelli.
Charlie's there to look after Stefano, and he's doing a great job today. Now, look at that lovely painting. Looks as though it is an oil painting. It's all blurred.
Except for the fact that something's moving in that oil painting, and this time it's nice to see that the blue and pink jerseys come to the front. Gilberto Simone has now come to do a little bit of work.
Yeah, this is
getting the dust out of his eyes.
That's sad, because the sweat must be stinging those eyes as well right now. He's doing well, good sign of resistance. He's a great bike rider, De Luca, very popular man.
Punchy style there at the front of Gilberto Simone. He's trying to find a little bit of extra gas. Salvadelli, he's quite happy just to accompany here this afternoon. He's used all of his energy on the downhill section of the course, a big risk. I think he would have been happier to have started this climb with around about a 45-second advantage. In fact, he only started with something like 15 seconds, which was wiped away by Ivan Basso.
Basso's going to try and finish a great day off here today. He's in the pink as we speak because he's the leader on the road right now. This is going back 4 minutes now. The troops are gathering around Cunego to try and keep him going. He must be feeling a little bit demoralised, knowing that these boys are going so well, and Gilberto Simone is driving up here as well. What a beautiful picture that is. And Ivan Basso, after his inspired time trial to finish behind Zabriskie, is now looking at the Maglia Rosa.
He's looking up the road there, counting away the kilometres. There are the three team managers in the cars behind. Sean Yates will have been very impressed by the performance of Paolo Salvadelli on the downhill section of the course, and now he's probably wondering whether or not his man can stay in contact. I do feel that Ivan Basso must try and distance himself. There's the man who started the day in the Maglia Rosa. That is Danilo De Luca, the leader of the Pro Tour, a dominant rider on the start of this season with incredible wins in the Ardennes. Simone seems to have recovered. It's getting to the slightly steeper part of the climb here. This suits the little climber.
I'm just wondering whether Salvadelli stopped working with this group. He made his attack, they brought him back, and he says, right, you two can carry on again now. And I'm wondering, I was about to wonder if he was going to attack, but maybe I should have gone for Basso, because Basso has made a desperate acceleration, and he's got Simone. If he keeps that one, that will be the end of Gilberto Simone, and he got him at the right time. Simone's having to dig deep now. Even the best climbers in the world can suffer, and Simone is going to have to suffer.
Well, he was caught out by that acceleration there. It's almost 5 minutes back to Cunego and Garzelli. Their Giro d'Italia is over. And look at the way Simone is all over that machine. He's hanging onto those bars. He's gritting his teeth, saying, I'm a champion. I've won the Giro d'Italia before. I have to stay in contact. This man here is riding a lonely race, and he keeps looking around. Every time he sees the long straight roads in front of him, he can see those men. It's 28 seconds the time that he's lost here so far. That is not astronomical.
That gap is still opening, Paul, and I've got a feeling here that Simone might well be going. Basso wants him to go. There's another kick, and look, Salvadelli's had to go after him. What an incredible acceleration there by Ivan Basso. He was the under-23 world champion back in 1998, Ivan Basso. That was over the hilly roads of Holland.
Simone's in trouble.
He's gone there. That second acceleration has finished him.
He's just put it onto his outside chainring there, and he's really desperately trying to stay in contact, but that gap is starting to appear. Salvadelli looks over his shoulder. He's actually using a much smaller gear than Ivan Basso, which I think is why he's been able to respond to these accelerations.
Spending time with Lance Armstrong.
I think that could be what it is. He's learned this spinning that Armstrong has developed over the last few years since he came back from testicular cancer back in 1999.
What a great ride this is by Basso. This man is clearly suffering, but he's suffering in an attacking mode, trying to rid himself of everyone today. It's been a duo struggle. I think he's got Simone this time. And watch out, because Danilo De Luca is still holding tempo. And once the elastic does snap, De Luca might well climb back up to Simone here.
Concentrated effort.
Two left.
just down to 2 men. Basso, he's not looking confident, keeps looking over his shoulder. You see, he's launched so many attacks here at Paolo Salvadelli, and he was surprised, I think, not to have got rid of everybody on this final stage. And that might be the psychological blow when it comes down to the final few meters, because he, I think, has used a lot more energy than anybody else on this stage.
Well, look at the inside chain rings there. I'll tell you what, Paul, when you think about it, 3 kilometres to go. It seems an awful long time ago since we saw 6 kilometres, and that gives you some idea how steep this climb is.
Well, in fact, Paolo Salvadelli has only just put it onto the outside chainring. He's been using a much smaller gear all of the time. Basso, time trialling. For Basso, he's in a bit of a quandary here, Phil. He's got to get as much time as possible as he can over Danilo De Luca. It's 10 seconds back to Simoni, 37 seconds to Danilo De Luca. And I think tactically, Salvadelli is not going to push quite that hard, because all he's got to think about is trying to win himself the stage.
Well, these are real time gaps right now. And again, Simoni has gone back up the gears on this false flat to see what he can do. De Luca will also come back into his own on this false flat and might begin to close the gap. These two aren't exactly helping each other here. It's huge turns being done by Basso, and occasionally Salvadelli gives a helping turn of the pedals.
I think it's just to stay in front of Gilberto Simoni. I think he's gambling here, Paolo Salvadelli.
I'm beginning
he gambled
to fancy
on the downhill.
Salvadelli still to win.
Well, he's gambled a lot on the downhill section of the course. He started the climb with an advantage of around about 15 seconds, but he knows that Ivan Basso cannot slow down. Ivan Basso can't start to play around in this situation, because he's got to get time over that man there. We caught a glimpse of Danilo De Luca. I think Salvadelli is probably psychologically in the best position.
Well, they know as the crowds get a little bit thicker, racing through the village here, heading up towards the summit now of the Zoldo Alto. Basso has made this a key stage for him this year. He's obviously eyed it, decided this is where he was going to try and open the gaps. The only man who's defied him is Paolo Salvadelli. 2 kilometres to go. And although Salvadelli was caught, I still fancy him for the victory now, because he's making Basso do all of the work.
And he still looks pretty punchy. Look at him getting out of the saddle. He's still got that fluidity and that suppleness in his pedalling action. Whereas if you look at the man in front, Ivan Basso is using a slightly larger gear. He's still opening up the gaps. It's now 45 seconds to Danilo De Luca. His days in the Maglia Rosa are starting to look as if they're coming to a close.
These are the men today who tried to take part in the Giro d'Italia, and in the end they've been cracked. And the 2 riders who have done it, well, primarily one rider, Ivan Basso. The gadfly today is Paolo Salvadelli, who tried to win the stage. So far he's had his wings trimmed, but he's still in with a shout as we climb our way up.
He didn't have his wings trimmed on the downhill section of the course, where he absolutely flew down to the start of this climb, but ever since then it seems to have turned around to the advantage of Ivan Basso. He is now looking like a very solid leader of the Giro d'Italia, because he is riding himself into the Maglia Rosa. Although a little bit further down, Danilo De Luca will think a little bit later on of whether or not he can get himself back into this race. But 54 seconds is starting to look serious.
Yeah, and he's also, Simoni is actually still pulling away from De Luca, so any hoped-for return there seems out of the window now. It's the 1, 2, 3 who are in the lead who are going to cross the line in that position, but which one will win? And the odds might be on Paolo Salvadelli now. 1,300 metres as they continue the climb to the summit. There's Simoni. He's going to finish 3rd today for sure, which will give him a top 3 position overall and a likely podium place. But remember, it's still a long way to race in this year's Giro d'Italia. Just on 2,000 kilometres covered by the end of this day. Some 1,500 still to go.
Yeah, but of those 1,500, I would say a large proportion, probably 30% of those, are absolutely uphill once we go across the top of the Dolomites and finish with some very nasty days in the Alps. Ivan Basso, though, Phil, looks superb. He's just sat there rock solid on his machine, while all of the time to stay in contact, Paolo Salvadelli has to get out of the saddle, just keep accelerating, just holding on to the back wheel of the man that he's been accompanying since the bottom of this climb.
1 kilometre. And Paolo Salvadelli here, a man who's never won a road race since the year 2000, when he won the 3rd stage of the Tour of Trentino. He's won a time trial since then, and he's won a couple of GCs, including the Tour of Italy itself. This could be a big return. He keeps spending time out while he has his bones healed up. But he's in a good place because he hasn't come through for a couple of kilometres now. He knows the importance to Basso. I'm just wondering if Basso might have used an awful lot of energy today. He's used an awful lot. Has it been too much is the question.
There's Simoni. A long way back, around about 20 seconds, the difference between these two and Simoni. But Ivan Basso today is in a difficult situation. He would like to win the stage because it's a big mountaintop finish. But of course, for him, it's much more important to get time over all of his rivals. And that's what Paolo Salvadelli is playing on here, just sitting there in second position. Although Salvadelli, I'm quite sure he's not showing it, but inside his body must be going through all kinds of turmoil.
Well, there's one thing's for certain, we can be sure of. Basso is the next pink jersey wearer of this year's Giro d'Italia because De Luca has lost too much time now. Basso has been promoted from second to first and he'll have to defend tomorrow. Tomorrow may not be a problem, it's a reasonably flat stage, but then he's back in the mountains and he won't have too many teammates to help him out, and he probably is well aware of that. Salvadelli's done nothing this last couple of kilometres. I reckon when he sees the line he's going to sprint away.
Well, he's bouncing, looking over his shoulder. He still looks fluid. He still is using a much smaller gear than the man in front of him. Probably 2 teeth lower than me. Do you see him look down there, just checking, make sure everything was lined up? While meanwhile, Ivan Basso just ticks away, those legs going with the regularity of a metronome, just keeping himself further and further ahead of Danilo De Luca. He wants to make sure that he's got big time chunks over everybody else in this race, because he could be wearing the Maglia Rosa for an awful long time. 300
metres to go. Basso's had no choice but to keep the pressure on here to gain time. That's the penalty you play when you race for the big lead in the national tour. And Paolo Salvadelli has known all about that. He's following here as long as he can. I can't believe it. And here comes the sprint. And Basso started it quite early, I think. He's gone quite a long way out. And it's a little bit of a downhill now, so he needs to sit down and slip the gears up. But it looks as though Paolo Salvadelli, and he doesn't win many sprints in his life, he's got this one. 5 years on, almost to the day, he finally wins again.
But at the end of the day, if Ivan Basso didn't get himself the stage win, he will get himself the Maglia Rosa. But what's important now is to look back down at the finish line and see what the time checks are. Here is Gilberto Simoni. He will move up in the overall classification at the end of the day. That's 22 seconds for him. And now the man who started the day in the pink, Danilo De Luca, for me, Phil, has not done a bad job because most people thought he would get blown away in the mountains. He stayed in contention.
Well, I think he's had a great day out, in fact, Danilo De Luca. He's not a climber of the quality of all three men ahead of him, yet he rose to the occasion. And it was just the rapid acceleration of Basso up to the finish that cracked him. And also, must be said, it cracked Gilberto Simoni as well. But Danilo De Luca will be out of pink, but will still be in with a good shout of a high finish at the end of this race. Unfortunately, there's still rather a lot of mountains to come.
Just a minute and 1 second, but look at this. He looked a lot smoother on the right-hand side. He was certainly in the right gear when it came up to the acceleration, but Paolo Salvadelli, well, he's got to have a long memory, hasn't he, to remember the last time he crossed the line with his hands in the air like that.
5 years, but who cares? He's back, and that's a great win for the team Discovery as well, and for Captain Sean Yates, who's in control of the team over this 3 weeks here in the Tour of Italy. It's his new job. It's Assistant Director Sportif for Team Discovery Channel. There's the stage result. Basso given the same time. Simoni at 21 seconds. De Luca at 61. Van Huffel is the new climbing sensation coming out of Belgium. As we now go back to the podium, come on, at least smile because it was well worth it. He tried to win the race on the downhill. He had to do it in the sprint.